Welcome to Let's Talk About It. Your host, Jimmy Mortgage, your favorite mortgage advisor. I'm here today with Linette Semino from Compass. Linette, welcome to Let's Talk About It. How are you?
I am doing amazing. Thank you so much for having me here.
Yes.
I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
I'm happy you're here. So you are the queen when it comes to condos and co-ops in New York City. So we're going to talk about that. So tell me a little bit, some of the things that you are seeing today that some buyers are, confused about, but want to be in the building, and how some sellers want to make sure they get the proper sellers associations, get the proper people into the condos co-ops.
Wow, that is a very loaded question.
It should be, yeah.
It is. So I am both a condo and buyer's agent.
Right.
I represent both sellers and buyers.
Right.
I've been in the industry for 20 years, so I'm going to tell you what I'm seeing today.
Okay.
Because the market is certainly shifting.
Right.
The spring market in New York City was so busy, and you would think that people are leaving. Because
Right.
I get that question asked all the time. People
I'm
are like,
sure.
oh, people are moving to Florida. No one's moving.
Right.
No one's leaving. So the market was very, very strong.
So is it fair to say like some people are making more noise than what it is because the ground is so different from what others are preaching out there, right?
Well, I think they're listening to the headlines rather than talking to real estate agents and watching shows like yours.
Right.
They're, just reading that people are moving to Florida because of the income tax break that they get down there. And because New York is a city where now we have a new tax
Right.
on second homes, and people listen to that and they panic a little bit, and they're like, New York City is not a place to be anymore.
Right.
But I see a completely different scenario where people actually want to be in New York City.
Let's talk about it. You're going to dispel all that.
Let's talk
Let's
about
talk about
it.
it. There you go.
Well, let's think about it. New York City has it all. It has
Right.
great restaurants, still has a thriving entertainment industry here.
Right.
So why leave New York? The prices are not that cheap. However, you can still find great deals in the both the buying market and also the rental market.
Okay.
For example, if you're a buyer,
Right.
I always recommend going with a condo rather than a co-op, although I'm a co-op expert.
Right.
And that's because you have the flexibility of renting it out if you decided at some point that you want to leave New York, per
Right.
se. Let's say you get, an opportunity to move to Florida
Right.
for fun, not because you're scared of New York City, but just because you want to move there for work or whatnot. You can always rent out a condo. When it comes to the co-ops, it's a very different market because you don't have that flexibility.
Right.
So New Yorkers are looking into condos still as a long-term investment, specifically because they can rent it out.
So going back, forget Florida, right? I mean, you got other states.
Yeah, you have Texas.
You have Texas, you have Florida, you have California, you have other states. So specifically, when it comes to co-ops, I know they're a board, there are stakeholders involved. Can you walk me through some of the hurdles that some have to deal with and why you're the expert, your expertise lends to that credibility?
So let's describe what a co-op is. You don't actually own real estate like you would in a house or a condo.
Right.
You don't own a title. You own shares in a corporation. And in that corporation, the corporation lends you the actual physical property, the apartment.
Right.
So you get what is called a proprietary lease.
Okay.
So instead of a title.
Right.
So the reason why co-op boards are so strict is because they want to make sure they understand who the shareholder is.
Right.
Although everyone has a door to their own apartment, everyone's going to be sharing their main entry door,
Right.
the lobby door. So they want to know who you are, not only from a financial perspective, but also from a character perspective.
It's all communal.
It's all communal. It's a club.
Right.
So they
It's a
want to know.
club.
It's a club.
Right.
So when you apply for a co-op, you have to submit letters of recommendation, not just personal letters of recommendations,
Right.
but also business letters, because they also want to know, okay, who is this person in a business setup?
Right.
The tricky part about co-ops is that they're not only analyzing your financials, they're analyzing who are you now and who will you be in the future. So let me explain that. You might have $5 million now, right?
Right.
But will you be able to keep that $5 million? Are you someone who's into risky investments?
Right.
They don't like that as much as someone who has more stability, for example. They have to follow the fair housing laws,
Right.
which are in New York City are pretty strict.
Okay.
So what I would say is they're very much focused on your financial picture as well as what you bring to the table.
Okay.
But financial picture is not all. I've had buyers, and this is where my expertise comes in. I'm going to use a very specific situation. I had a buyer who came to me with monies in a trust fund,
Right.
but she was on a New York Post
Right.
about how she was being evicted for throwing loud parties because she had a lot of money,
Right.
where there were dancers and drugs involved, and that was out there.
Right.
So her persona was somewhat tainted by what was written about her. So how do you get someone like that through a board, right? Like how do you do that? So we had to put it on the table and say, this happened a few years ago. I am a different person today.
Right. Because second chances are.
You know, and it's
right.
like the more, I feel like with co-op board, the more honest you are about who you are and what situations happen to you,
Right.
the more understanding there are. But it's not just about the money. And I don't think it's necessarily profiling. It's more like they don't want certain people. Like I can use Madonna, for example. Like Madonna was rejected from the Dakota, right?
Oh.
And
Okay.
A-Rog was rejected as well from the Dakota, which is a very famous co-op in
Was
New
it
York
the
City.
J-Lo days?
I know. I think it was before the J-Lo
Okay,
day.
okay.
But they have the money. But why wouldn't they want them? Because it brings too much noise to the building.
Right,
and
right.
It's disturbing. So I would say the positive about the co-op is that it keeps the investors away, so everyone gets to know each other. You know that if you own there, you either live there as a second homeowner, or you're living there full time, and that creates the sense of community.
Right.
Where in the condo, like I said, investors
Right.
are more attracted to condominiums.
And a lot of people will ask that question, can you get lending in the co-ops? And absolutely you can, right? So we go through a protocol where we make sure this is where some buildings, either they're warrantable or non-warrantable, given their financials. And we can go into that, but I'm not going to dial too much into that. But that said, you can get lending. Sometimes usually you have to put a larger percentage down, right? Just to make sure that it's easier for you to go through the lending criteria. And when we ask for, we ask for stock certificates, we ask to fill out a questionnaire. We asked about some of their financials, which is part of the questionnaire being completed. And once we get that, we go ahead and approve you. But keep in mind, when you're dealing with condos and co-ops, in some cases, going back to what Linette was saying, we can approve you, but sometimes the board may not approve you. So that happens at times. So it's important to make sure, again, work with a professional like Linette to make sure that you're approved and you've gone through all the guidelines to adhere to lending, right? Because those two need to happen in order to make sure you're living in there,
And
right?
you just made a great point.
Right.
I had a buyer 2 years ago who came to me and said, I'm going to be putting down 50%. And then I said, that's wonderful, but let's look at how much money you're going to have left over for closing costs,
Right.
and to be able to show the board, not just the the co-op board,
Right.
but a condo board would want to see that you have emergency funds. And essentially she was liquefying most of her monies to be able to put 50% down. So it's also important as a buyer to understand what down payment makes sense.
Right.
You mentioned a co-op down payment. You're right. In co-ops, down payments are usually 25%.
25%, correct. Yeah.
Can you put down 25%? Can you put down 30%? It's a question that you're having with some of the buyers, but I have that even before
Up
then.
front, right?
Up
So you're
front.
screening them. And also, too, it's very important. Although when we're talking about specifically Manhattan, at the end of the day, it goes across the board. You're going to have you need a certain credit criteria in some cases just to get into it, right? So in some cases, you probably will not be able to get in. Usually they're looking for higher credit scores because they ask about that. And then they also ask about your debt to income ratio. Because again, I'm going through it. I'm looking at it. I'm like, I need to make sure when I'm looking at your when I'm looking at your financials that there's a threshold that I do not cross. Again, we may approve you, but the co-op condo, they have their layers where they're not trying to hear you if you don't meet certain criteria.
So what's your debt to income as a mortgage banker? What's your
we
debt
can
to
go to
income?
50%.
You can go to 50%.
You can go to 50%.
So the debt to income ratio to get into a co-op, it's under 28%. Usually they want to see 25 is ideal, but like if you're in the 25, 28, like that's good. But I know lenders usually have a higher
we can go
debt to income.
we can go to 50%, and if it's FHA approved, we can go to 56.99%.
That's crazy.
You can, as long as we get an approval from our agencies, this can go ahead and move forward, right? Again, it's just depending on who makes up the board and what would be allowed in order to get the lending in there, right? So
yeah, and you know, now with the cost of living in New York City, debt to incomes are very high right now, especially if you have student loans and you have a car in New York City. All those fixed income, all those fixed costs are included, kind of like grouped together.
Yeah.
It's tough to keep it. I mean, it's tough to keep it under 28.
It is, but you know, that's why, you know, you work specifically in New York City, right? Manhattan, right? But obviously there are boroughs, Brooklyn, Queens, you know, the Staten Island, you know, their debt to income ratio goes a little higher, right? So it plays into, you can get a condo co-op. You just got to speak to a professional like you.
Absolutely.
To make sure you get it.
Absolutely. And the thing about it is people usually hear, oh, New York City is so expensive from a buyer's perspective. But at the end of the day, once you buy a property, you're creating equity. You have something tangible.
Right.
You can renovate, you can paint, you can do whatever you want, and you don't have to worry about shifts in the rental market.
Right.
The rental market right now is on fire. It is the hardest rental market that I have experienced in my 2 decades in real estate. We reach out to a landlord for a potential tenant, and there's already 2 and 3 applications anywhere in Manhattan. And not only that, but I don't know if you know this, a studio is now going for $4,000 in Manhattan.
That's crazy. I mean, look, it's what it is. This episode is brought to you by Pamela Lee from Elite Title Group, representing all real estate transactions in the state of New Jersey. But to go back to what you were saying, right? You know, you have over 2 decades of experience. Can you remember the conversation you had on PIX with Kaidi Chung?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Let's talk about that, right? At the time, she looked at you like you was crazy when you were saying parts of, right? It was a Greenpoint, Bed-Stuy. It was $1 million. And she was like, no, that's not right. And all of a sudden, now you're looking, many years later.
Totally. Yeah. And you know what? I mean, that conversation with her really assured me that I would be okay in real estate.
Right.
Because I remember at the beginning talking to her about how Bed-Stuy was up and coming in the Bronx, and she was like, oh, I don't think that's what my audience wants to hear.
Right.
And I was like, but that's the reality. Those are the neighborhoods where people are investing right now that are going to be at a different price point.
Bed-Stuy now?
Bed-Stuy, forget it. At the time, it was $1 million, the first $1 million property. Can you believe that? And, you know, they were like, okay, I don't believe it. And now what? Like, Bed-Stuy is a place where businesses are thriving. Property value is so high. And the lines are like out the door.
They got bike lanes. They got the park. Everything has changed completely, right? That's New York City, right?
There aren't any parts of New York City anymore that are not being touched by development or by gentrification. We like it or not, that's just the way it is. I grew up in the Bronx, and we talked about that. The Bronx too.
So you grew up in the Bronx, but you're from DR. You got to the Bronx when you were 13 years old, right? And your first word was yellow?
That never gets old.
To see you today,
never gets old. My daughter says to me, Mom, don't tell that story anymore, because I say it so many times. I came to this country, I didn't speak English. I came to live with my aunt, who was an office cleaning lady, and both of my grandparents at a advanced age had to work. So I started working very early. But one thing that I brought with me from the Bronx is, from the Dominican Republic, is that my mother was a teacher there, and she always said to me, you have to get educated even before you get married. You have to work on your life and building your career. So when I came here, no English, I focused on going to high school and making it to college. And even though it was a struggle to be in college while I was supporting myself, I did it. And I was lucky enough to get a really good job at the Ritz-Carlton because I study hotel and restaurant management. Hospitality.
Okay.
And from there, my first real job was right into real estate.
Wow.
So that's why I've been
So the calling was there.
Yeah. The calling was there. But the Bronx, what I learned living in the Bronx is that you have to have drive.
Right.
And you have to be a people's person. You have to understand that we live in a city where there's so many types of people. They are the people that need more care, and they're the ones that are caring for those people, the ultra wealthy, which I happen to also service in my real estate career. But I'm also compassionate to those who are looking for affordable housing, for example, or looking to make their first investment in New York City, or that are first-time homeowners who have saved everything to go into the real estate market. So I would not change my life for anything, because living in the Bronx really opened my life to New York City.
Right.
What New York City really is. And it's crazy to me to see how the Bronx has been transformed over the course of 20 years. I've been living in Manhattan now for more than 20 years, but that's primarily it.
Right.
There's great restaurants. It's, I was talking to my cousin who still lives there, and she's like, "Cuz, you would not believe it how many new construction building there are now in in your old neighborhood where she still lives."
It's crazy.
It's insane.
Percentage wise, technically speaking, right? If you invest in the Bronx now, because the price points are a little lower than Manhattan, you would get a better return, right? Just for the simple fact that some are still, they still want to be in Manhattan, right? Manhattan's Manhattan, right? But if you can spare another 15 to 25 minutes more, the Bronx is not that far, right? And so I believe in time, it's going to be a place where, a borough where you're going to see the value and the returns will be there. You just got to be patient, because that's the same thing that happened in Brooklyn, right? We didn't see certain things until, like you mentioned, Bed-Stuy, Crown Heights, Flatbush. All these parts of Brooklyn was, we didn't have certain things, and all of a sudden you just started seeing, trees being developed, developers coming in, better access points with MTA, right? There was always there, but now they have buses and shuttles and everything that can help one get into Manhattan is there. And there's an argument to be made. Some people don't even go to Manhattan anymore. Some people just stay within their boroughs and still make it happen,
it comes down to transportation.
Right, yeah.
The Amtrak is building a new station, and it's going to be stopping along Fordham and also Parkchester.
I did not know that.
Now you know.
Okay.
So, and that's supposed to be finished in a year from now. So in a year from now, people will be able to commute from those parts of the Bronx into Penn Station in 20 minutes.
Look, she's talking about
in 20 minutes.
Wow.
So I was speaking at the Javits Center about why the Bronx is a borough for investors,
right.
And you mentioned that just now.
Okay.
The price points are so entry level.
Right.
You can get a multi-family property in the Bronx for under $5 million. So if you and I and a few other people come JB, up with $5 million, let's do it.
Let's go to the BX.
Let's do it.
Right.
And and then we become landlord. You become landlord.
Right.
Obviously, the numbers have to make sense.
Right.
Because if you're getting a mortgage, what are the rates now?
The rates are the rates. They're a little high, but at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, it's still on a property.
A rate as an investor, right? You can make the case lower rates are better, but you can make the case where higher rates are also better too, because it takes certain people out the pool. Because you just got to know your numbers. What is that margin, right? What are you trying to make for you and your stakeholders who are involved in this project? And if that's there, and you are patient with the process, you'll do well. You just got to be patient.
I bought a property, my first property that I bought in Parkchester in the Bronx, for those who do not know.
Right.
I think I was 21 years old, and I bought it, and my family members were like, "Oh, why are you putting all your savings in the Bronx? Like that doesn't make any sense." I still have it. I've had the same tenant in my property since day one.
That's what's up.
That's what's up. And you know what? The property has gone up in value 200%. So
she's talking about it, guys.
So
when you say there's no inventory, you got to listen to the right folks.
And and I now I'm thinking I want to invest more in the Bronx. And I talk about the Bronx a lot. Why? Because transportation makes it easy.
Right.
From Grand Central into like the Yankee Stadium, it's like 20 minutes.
Right,
It's so
right.
easy. You can spend 45 minutes going into Brooklyn. Who wants to spend 45 minutes or an hour sitting in a train? I go see my mom, for example, in Little Haiti.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, am I there yet?
Well, Little Haiti's not as bad as going to Canarsie, right? You're on the other side of it. Like,
But
you're
you
by
know
the
Little Haiti, right?
Yeah. That's where I'm from. I'm from the Flatbush, Midwood area. So yeah, this is what we're saying, right? When you hear the noise, like, I can't afford it, I don't know what's happening. First of all, you have to define what afford means, right? Then you have to ask yourself, what kind of return are you looking for? And this is why Linette and I are having this conversation about there's opportunity. You just got to make sense about it. And as professionals, when she's talking about real estate, yes, New York is Manhattan is where she goes, is what's going on, obviously because of the relationships. But she's telling you again, she's humbled and she understands life because that's where she has not forgot where it started. And she's willing to help you understand how to get keys to an investment or first-time buyer, right? So this is the thing that you can look. You got luxury. We met at Gramercy Park, right? We were in the luxury. That was a fun party. It was a networking event. Look, we get it, but at the end of the day, we never forget where we come from.
Absolutely not.
Because as much as you see glorification on some of this stuff, you can lose it too.
Well, I think at the end of the day, we all have the same dream, which is to live a beautiful life and be happy and enjoy the things that we have, because then it will be gone, right?
Yeah. So
I always say having your own home is that dream.
Right.
It represents happiness. But if you can't afford it, then renting is fine too. I mean, a lot of the times people say, oh, I rent. Like, I rent. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Right.
It's still money.
There's opportunities. You just have to be patient with it, right? This episode is brought to you by Carrasco Cantina, a local real estate firm located in the state of New Jersey. They're here to help you with all your real estate needs. So speaking of renting, we talked about the second home. So New York right now, I think you mentioned in the month of this year, July, they're going to have a pied-à-terre tax, right? Can you break that down a little bit? What does it mean, and how has it affect or will affect investors / current homeowners in this area?
So everyone's speaking about this new pied-à-terre tax because it was just passed and it's going into effect July 1st of this year, like in a few days from now. And what it means is that if you are a second homeowner, what we call here pied-à-terre, you will be taxed based on the assessed value of your property. And just to give you an example, if the property is around $5 million, then that tax is going to go up a little bit more than what it currently is. Okay. So from 1 to 5 is around 4%, around there, and then it escalates. But it's not on the property value, and I think that's what's so confusing, because people think, oh, if I have a $5 million property, would I get taxed? And that's not it. It's on the assessed value, which is completely different. The city has a very different system for doing that. Okay. So the reason why that's creating a buzz is because New York City is all about paying more taxes. Oh, tax here, tax there. So no one wants to pay more tax. It doesn't really impact, let's say, the homeowners who have properties that are valued at $1 million and under. Right. It mostly affects the ultra wealthy.
They're going after a certain pool.
They're going after the super rich, right? The super rich, the mega rich. Right. So how is that impacting? It's just creating a lot of noise. People are asking me, oh, I own a $1 million property. Would I get taxed more? And the answer is no, because at the moment it's on the ultra wealthy. But what it does create is it creates a lot of noise and more panic and more people saying, well, New York City is not a great place to be. And again, like I said at the beginning of the conversation, no one's leaving New York. No. New Yorkers are here to stay. I see open houses with people waiting outside the door. Right. There are people that want to stay here and they will never move. They will never move.
The thing is, look, I get it. And the clickbait, it makes sense. Madame is making it social. I don't subscribe to none of that stuff. I always feel like where there's noise, you need to ask a couple of questions. Why and how? And then understand what can I do to navigate my pocketbook and my family's why, right? And I don't see, yeah, there are people leaving, but there are also people coming in. So I think New York has a net inventory of profitability. And yes, are they asking those who make more to pay? Look, agree or disagree, I mean, the guy did balance the budget with adding a little bit to it, right? So he can make that case. Now, I'm not gonna dive into that. Do I agree or not agree? Because I'm no longer a New Yorker, but I can tell you this: he's solving for one of the things that New York was having a problem with, is budgeting, and you always have to be in the position to be fiscally responsible in order to get new projects in. Certain bills have to get paid.
I just don't know how effective it's going to be. And for one of the things, let's say, as I said, this is on the multi-million-dollar properties, right? Mm-hmm. So those people who own these properties have multiple properties around the United States. They're not going to be as affected because they have the capital. But how does that affect mentally the investor, or how does that affect the people who do not really understand the meaning of this and might shy away from investing in New York City? Mm-hmm. And also, let me say, those people have second homeowners. They're coming to the restaurants. They're spending money in the restaurants. Right. So now they're going to take their money if they don't want to pay it, if they're just fed up with New York City, and park it. You don't want me to say Florida, but I'll say Texas. Bring it down to Texas. And spend it there and help the economy there. So I don't know how effective this is going to be.
Again, to each his own. In the end, New York City, my opinion, is the greatest blinking city in the world. No questions. Stop all your madness and swiping this and that. Forget. We here, and this is how we roll. That said, so I know you're in the city. There's some good restaurants. Give me one or two restaurants you like to go to.
I really love Scarpetta.
Oh, I love Scarpetta.
That
pasta is the shit.
I do.
Oh my God.
I mean, I know
it is so good.
It is really good. And one of the reasons why is because I go there often. And then I go downstairs to Seville, the bar, and they play great music. And it's around the corner from me. But I have to say, I also love Indian food. So I go anywhere there's a good Indian place. I love intimate places too. I can go to Scarpetta and I like Abra. I mean, Abra, everyone knows it, but they have a prefix menu. Have you had it?
No, I haven't had it. No.
For lunch, you need to try it out.
So
you need to try it out.
Every time I'm always finding myself, I eat at Abra's and then I go to Penelope's, and then sometimes we go to, if they're doing a show at Radio City, right? Because it just makes sense. So we do like the whole thing. I'm like. Then I look at the bill, I'm like, damn, that was, but it's so good.
But that's the beauty about being in the city. I'm surrounded by restaurants, so I don't have to just go to one, but I like the vibe in those places that I mentioned.
So every now and then, we got our heritage. Don't you feel like sometimes you need some bacalao on some plans?
There are days when I'm like, I wish I was back in the Bronx. Life was a bit easier. You're enjoying, like everyone else is like enjoying the summer with the pool outside on the sidewalk and the fire hydrant. And me going to the $5 like rice and beans bistec place, and I'm like, I wish my life was that easy, but it's different in a different way. But I do miss that.
That's what's up. As far as traveling, do you plan on traveling this year? If so, if you have not or will, what is your favorite country? Because I don't want people stalking her, because you know how the world is today, right?
Well, I think I'm gonna die poor.
Okay.
I'm gonna die. We all die poor, but I'm gonna die very poor because I invest all my money in traveling. Okay. And I spend a significant amount of time traveling. Okay. This year, I'm planning on going to the coast of Spain, Barcelona. Okay. Valencia, nice. Alicante, down to Malaga, and maybe go to Marbella, which I haven't been to in many years. Okay. But I love traveling with my daughter, and usually we do these multi-city trip. We like to take the train and
get in that experience.
Yeah, it's important to travel. It's important to understand culture and also enjoy the food. Food. Who doesn't like food? And I take the opportunity to also see real estate when I travel, which is fascinating to me, how properties are different all across the world. Earlier this year, I went to Paris. Last year, I went to Paros in Greece, which I highly recommended.
Check it out. We
And
just got back
I
from
travel a
Paris.
lot. I do a lot of traveling.
I mean, you
It's
work
important.
hard, right? I mean,
Yeah, but I also think it's important to explore the world and understand culture.
and I see genuines coming through, especially when you take your daughter and she sees all the things moms can give her. It just you take it all in because it's just life is short and it's what you make of it. And
New York City is made of people. It's important to understand people by seeing their culture,
Right.
Because we're Americans, but there's more than that. So I love that.
nice. So, Linette, if people are looking for you, where can they find you? We got to share your social handles.
So I can be found on Instagram at Linette at Compass. Very easy, Linette at Compass. I'm also on YouTube. I'm trying to build my YouTube channel.
We're going to do that right now.
And I think those are the best way. I'm on LinkedIn by my name, Linette Semino.
Okay.
Linette at Compass.
Okay, nice. Well, Linette, thank you so much for coming on. Let's talk about it. For my audience, you can find me on your favorite streaming platform. Let's talk about it. Again, I'm your local favorite mortgage provider when it comes to lending. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.